across the river Ghandak and natural border of what was then called Kosala. We assume from this story that the Aryans used slash and burn techniques in clearing the jungle north of the river Ganga before applying their plows to the rich soil. Rice was cultivated by now, and it is safe to conjecture that before long the Aryans would come to rely upon some system of irrigation in assisting its growth. Kosala and Videha were the kingdoms in which Rama and Sita, the hero and heroine of North Indian shorter epic, the Ramayana, were born. Less than one quarter the size of the Mahabharata, the Ramayana is attributed to the poet sage Valmiki. We assume it was composed sometime before 500 BC, and its epic kernel actually seems to predate that of the Mahabharata, since no mention is made of any of the martial heroes of the latter in the Ramayana, though the story of Rama and Sita is recounted several times in the longer work, opening at the Kosala capital of King Dashratra, Ayodhya, from which the region of present UP derived its earlier name, Ud. The Ramayana gives us many insights into the character of later Aryan court life. We learn of the machinations and endless intrigue of the aging king's three wives, who struggle and conspire to place their own sons in the position of heir apparent. We see now how powerful a force religious laws or dharma has become in dictating proper behavior. Even for a monarch, as guardians and interpreters of that sacred lore, officiators of the royal sacrifice, the Brahman priesthood maintained its special privileges and courtly influence. In sharp contrast to the luxurious decadence of the court, however, we see the austere natural life of the hermit sage, whose primitive forest home is a major alternative setting for the Ramayana's heroic exiled couple. The spiritual as well as economic interdependence between the settled city and the untamed forest regions of the still predominantly wild Gangetic plains help us understand better the process through which the gradual socio-economic transition of North India was affected in this epic era. The great sages who seek only to practice their yoga undisturbed in the forest are constantly attacked by demons, whose evil king Ravana is as much the prototypical villain of Indian literature as Rama is its divine hero king. Though Ravana's insular kingdom was named Lanka, it is doubtful that the island of Sri Lanka had as yet been discovered or conquered by the Aryans. The demon king and his domain were probably based on pre-Aryan marauders closer to Ud, the neighboring southern Badlands region of Malwa perhaps, or possibly the peninsular Deccan. We know from the Mahabharata that the Aryans had by now probed south beyond the barrier of the Vindhya mountains, since the tale is told of how a Brahmin sage named Agastya humbled that central Indian range, jealous of high Himalaya. Vindhya had grown so big with pride that it blocked the very path of the sun, rousing the gods on their Himalayan abode to send their messenger Agastya, who was Vidya's guru, on a trip to the south. When Vidya saw his guru approach, he naturally bowed low, and Agastya shrewdly asked him to remain that way until he returned but never went back. The entire Ramayana may be read as an allegory of Aryan and pre-Aryan conflict, culminating in the Aryan conquest of the south, While Rama and his lovely wife Sita, daughter of King Janaka of Vichda, are in forest exile. Ravana kidnaps Sita and carries her off to Lanka. During the ensuing search for his wife, Rama seeks allies among the monkeys of the forest, whose leader, Hanuman, helps him find Ramana's fortress. The monkey army then linked tails, improvising a bridge that Rama can cross to kill his demonic enemy and liberate his wife. Obviously, the Aryans lacked force enough to conquer South India by the martial invasion of armies launched from the north. There were no adequate communication or supply lines at this time, and the process seems in fact to have been closer to the one recounted in epic tale. The turbulent frontier of the jungle must have been brought repeated raids to Aryan settlements with robbery, rape, kidnap, or murder, luring Aryan stalwarts to venture beyond the comfortable security of their homesteads in reprisal. Whether alone or in small bands, such heroes doubtless won both loyal allegiance and much needed support from many of the tribesmen they encountered along the way, who soon learned from them the secrets of Aryan civilization, including the manufacture of iron tools and weapons and the use of ploughs, seeds, and water to ensure a grain surplus the year round. Hostile tribes were fought and ultimately subdued by the superior weaponry and self confidence of the northern invaders, who naturally believed that the gods were on their side and fought with all the fury of Indra himself, hurling thunderbirds of iron at intractable demons. Such a process of expansion, settled agricultural production, and pluralistic integration of new peoples led to the development of India's uniquely complex system of social organization, which was mistakenly labeled the caste system by the Portuguese. For what the Portuguese called caste in the 16th century was in fact the ideal Rig Vedic class Varna system of Brahmans, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, whereas what Indians mean by caste is really a much more narrowly limited endogamous group related by birth. The actual social pattern that began to emerge in the later Vedic period, however, was a combination of both Varna and Jati systems. The classic threefold Indo European tribal division into priests, warriors, and commons quickly proved inadequate, as already noted. While those three classes became the twice born Brahman, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas Varnas, the conquered Harappans were included quite early into the system as only once born Shudras. Or at least so we assume, for the origins of the Shudras remain obscure and can only be inferred from their second class legal status from the fact that they were defined by the Brahmins as servants of the twice born who could be exiled at will or slain at will. Shudras were not permitted to hear or study the Vedic hymns, which were considered potent magic and reserved for twice born ears only. Indeed, later legal texts prescribe pouring molten lead into the ears of any Shraddha caught secretly listening to Vedic mantras, as more and different tribal peoples were absorbed within the spreading boundaries of Aryan society. However, it soon became necessary to add still a lower class, one whose habits or occupation were so strange or unclean that Shudras did not wish to touch them. Hence, the emergence of those beyond the pale of the four Varna system, the untouchables, also called fifths, panchamas, or outcasts, so much for what can be inferred as to the origins of the Varna system. The roots of the more complex Jati system seem to be buried far deeper in India's pre Aryan soil.